Okay, welcome to the third and final, but perhaps not really final, just for this one time, segment of the DMZ America podcast. This one being for Friday, October 20th, 2023. I'm Ted Rall, and I'm coming to you from the left.
And I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right. And Ted, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh because it's actually, seriously, if you think about it, it's kind of sad. You saw the speech and our president, Joe Biden, Holy Mary, Mother of God. I mean,
Well, yeah, so he gave this speech for people who weren't following it or might be listening to this a little later, assuming the world's still here and they can hear this. The He gave a speech asking for Congress to approve $100 million in spending on in the ongoing proxy war between Russia and Ukraine, the new proxy war between Israel and Hamas, and the future proxy war between Taiwan and China, and then the non-proxy war between the U.S. and Mexico, the border wall. So basically, Biden wants money to send more weapons to Ukraine, to Israel, and Taiwan, and also to complete Trump's border wall. I'm not making this up. It's actually true. He gave a very disturbing appearance to reporters on Air Force One. That's really, if you think the speech was bad. But, here on the podcast, for long-time listeners, Scott, you and I have been in agreement that Joe Biden could not speak extemporaneously, but he was still able to read a speech.
Yeah.
That's not true anymore. He last night was not able to read that speech. He was squinting the entire time. He was losing track of his words. He did the Ron Burgundy thing where at one point there's a command that says something like "make clear," and he read the "make clear" part. He, so he is. I mean, he's senile, right? I mean, he is.
It is. It's funny.
And he's the president of the United States, and Democrats, my people, think this is perfectly fine and normal.
Yes,
they're in total denial about it.
Very similar to what Republicans felt about second term Ronald Reagan. He's fine. He's just Ron. It's just the Gipper being the Gipper. Yeah. He's not wearing any pants. Oh, that's just the Gip.
He's just free balling. You don't free ball? Everyone free balls. That's so 1986. Ask Jeffrey Toobin.
I'm afraid to ask. Okay, let's take a little break and ask Ted, what's free balling?
Oh, it's just like you're not wearing pants and your balls are hanging out in the air.
Oh, okay. So it's pants without underwear.
Yeah, like Franklin the turtle, or yeah, he's a pantsless turtle in the children's books, or yeah, there's a whole genre, a whole cultural genre of pantlessness. In one of the Harold and Kumar films, there's a bottomless party.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, pantlessness is a thing.
Okay. Well, I all things pantless, I will defer to my friend Ted Rall. Right. Getting back to the president of the United States and his cognitive problems, I continually hear from Democratic friends, Ted, and I know you do too, that this is just, he's fine. He's fine. We're making a big stink out of nothing. And he has a stutter. Yeah.
First of all, I want to lay that to rest. Actually, the president doesn't have a stutter. So good for him. That's like one problem he doesn't actually have. A stutter is that's a stutter. He doesn't have that. He has serious word retrieval problems, and he loses track of his words, and he does word salad. And then, what I thought was even more interesting was the fact that even the original text of the speech, no doubt written by his old Obama era staffers, was just awful. The attempt here seems to be that the desire is they know that they can get support for Israel from Republicans in the House, but they can't get support for Ukraine anymore. So they're trying to twist it all up so that it's one spending bill, and you have to take it all or get nothing at all. And if you don't want to be seen as voting for Hamas against Israel, you have to support the Ukrainian money that you don't really want to spend on, as well as the Taiwan money, which frankly, the Taiwan money makes no sense at all, given US foreign policy, which says that according to the US, I mean, it's not actually true on the ground. On the ground, Taiwan has de facto independence. But legally, the US considers China to be and Taiwan to be one country. And so they don't, sorry, we don't have, there's no such thing as a Taiwanese embassy to the US. And there's no US embassy to Taiwan in Taipei. There ought to be, I think, but that's a whole different matter. So so basically but the way that the speech was structured was, Israel, Ukraine, Israel, Ukraine, Israel, Ukraine. It kept pivoting back and forth.
Oh yeah.
And instead of sort of saying Israel, and which is of course front and center in people's minds, and then like, okay, and why is this all related to Ukraine? Here's why. But he didn't do that. It was just it was a hot mess. Do you think that the people who work for a senile president are, it's rubbing off on them and they're becoming a little senile themselves?
I don't think it's contagious. I do think that it was, I give the speech a higher marks than you do. I think that conflating Israel with Ukraine was a smart strategy. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. No, I know what you're saying. I'm saying that, I'm saying that just by saying that over and over and over again, really was the point of the speech. Israel is Ukraine and Ukraine is Israel. Given that,
do you think listeners or voters who are on the fence about this will be persuaded by that argument? Because I mean, I don't think people know enough about the two situations to assess that as being
right. But I also think that you are saying who's on the fence on this. No one's on the fence on this. We silo in this country now so quickly on any given issue. I mean, it's literally 24 hours. That's it. I mean,
although support for Israel is very bipartisan in especially in Congress, right? Everyone except the squad is pro-Israel.
Yes, I'd say the Democratic caucus is majority is going to be pro-Israel.
Although that's going to be a hard position to sustain, given as the Israeli overreaction and the invasion continues. And then once the ground invasion happens, there's going to be a lot more American press inside Gaza. Currently, if you want to see what's going on, you have to watch Al Jazeera or something. And nobody's doing that. But once you have like CBS and NBC and CNN inside on the ground in Gaza, and people are going to see how fucking awful it is. They're going to, especially, it's like 40% of the population are children. So that's going to be a lot of dead babies.
Yeah, I know. We don't care.
We're going to freak out.
We won't care.
I don't know.
We won't care. The citizens of the United States will not care.
We will see. I mean, I think
okay.
I don't know.
We haven't yet. I mean, it's not like this hasn't been happening.
We haven't
before.
seen it. It's not been covered.
Well, that's the other times we've seen this. We've seen mothers crying over their dead children. We've seen,
but Gaza Palestinians, they look like us. They wear Western clothes. They, they're like a little scruffier maybe, but they look like us. It's not like Afghans who wear weird clothes and shit. I'm
telling you, I'm just saying you asked what I think is going to happen. Getting back to the president and his cognitive abilities or lack thereof, I was having lunch with a friend and he's hearing from other Democratic friends the same thing that you had heard about the possible switcheroo. That is that Biden's going to go, well, yeah, you know what? I just had a physical and by gum. What? I'm sorry. I was just taking a message.
I agree.
I was just getting a message from Harry Truman. No, seriously. I mean, that he could step down. He could step aside. I'm sorry. As you mentioned, just reading a speech. This isn't rocket science. You and I
But he
And
can't
most
do it.
children over the age of 9 can do this. It's really, you've used a teleprompter. I've used a teleprompter.
Sure.
They're very easy.
They're great.
I mean,
Scott, I mean, seriously, like objectively, the man that we saw last night speak to the nation for his second time from the Oval Office since he became president 2.5+ years ago. Um, that's not a guy he can't run for president, right? He can't really campaign.
No. Well, you and I have talked about this. Donald Trump, for all of his faults, is going to have 2, 3, 4 rallies a day. Mm-hmm. In 2020, Joe Biden could have one every 2 days. That was 4 years ago.
That was a breakneck speed for him.
Yeah.
You can't do that now.
And now you don't have the excuse of COVID, so you can't have a rally with, six members of your family going, "Yay, Joe, good. Here's your yogurt. Here's your Go-Gurt."
Well, or however many members of his family are left after his dog gets done eating them.
Well, there's that. Or Hunter has sold them into, to white slavers out of the United Arab Emirates. I agree with you. I don't think he's capable of mentally or physically to have a presidential campaign next year. That's why. And Ted, I keep forgetting. I apologize. It's a senior moment. I'm having my own problems. The woman on Center Clip, where you and I are involved with, who actually floated this idea, I think she was onto something, and I'm leaning more and more towards a surprise in October, because
it would be easier to pull off now that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was the only somewhat high-profile challenger, is out of the Democratic primaries. And Marianne Williamson, who's the only remaining challenger, her candidacy is hanging by a bare thread. She's basically as good as done. So basically, Biden is running unopposed in the primaries. So in a way, he could more easily. I think it would be more of a cheat for him to do this against a robust challenger like a Bernie Sanders type, and then do the bait and switch later. But in the current environment, it does favor this kind of DNC shenanigan.
Right. And, like 1968, when McCarthy won primaries or came in second in them, had the most primary victories, hence the most primary delegates elected. Back then, they didn't have as many primaries or caucuses, but he still came into the convention leading the way, especially after the tragic assassination of Robert Kennedy. And of course, the Democrats had their convention in Chicago and nominated Hubert Humphrey.
Right.
So, who had not
Clean Gene would have won
against Nixon? No, especially not then.
Worse.
But you have to remember that Humphrey was way behind, and then he gave his speech about the war and really broke with the Johnson administration and says, I will not bomb North Korea. I'll stop the bombing of North Korea. I'll be pleased as punch to do that. That was my Humphrey. Believe me, it's a very good imitation.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he had a very good voice.
I don't think McCarthy. I don't think Clean Gene would have won. Humphrey was was a solid candidate and came within an eyelash.
And just to remind people, the reason that was possible was because until 1980, when they changed the rules in the Democratic Party, delegates were not. They were not
70.
They were not required to vote for their pledged
72. They changed it after 68 because so many Democrats were in McCarthy and young voters were. Does this sound familiar? Were so disenfranchised that they weren't going to vote. Mm-hmm. And so in 72, that's when you had McGovern, and because they swung the pendulum way too far the other way, and they got George McGovern, who didn't do so
also hot. Ran a cruddy campaign too.
Well, he also backed Eagleton 1,000%. Don't say that if you don't mean it.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah. It's really amazing that they managed to turn this hero of World War II into like a pussy, basically, as a louche socialist is how they portrayed him. And it worked.
Yeah.
Look what they did to John Kerry. John Kerry should have been completely war-proof. He fought valiantly in combat as a volunteer and opposed the war. So he was on both sides correctly.
Yes, he was. I mean,
and they still swift boated him. Karl Rove's greatest achievement.
Yeah, no. Oh God. Well, you know what? It's funny, and the Democrats did it again in 2016. Ted, they did not believe that people were that stupid.
Yeah,
they just could not believe in their little, Chardonnay
well, they didn't
fundraisers.
Realize what a shitty candidate and how incredibly unlikable Hillary Clinton was. Donald Trump did not win that election. Hillary Clinton lost it.
Well, but I'm thinking of 2004 with John Kerry. And how they swift boated him, and the Kerry campaign did not respond to the swift boat assholes for truth or whatever they were called, because he truly in his campaign said no one's going to believe that bullshit. I'm not.
Yeah, they were worried about the Streisand effect, right? Like sort of expanding, like making even more people aware of this smear than were made aware of it by the ads,
which is dumb. I mean, they should have. Clinton proved in the 92 election the rapid response teams. Any of the rumors, most of which turned out to be true. True. But you went out, and if you heard it, you went out and you sent out a representative of the campaign, and you swatted it down. Yeah. Biden. Okay, so how do you see this coming down? I think this is almost inevitable with Joe Biden stepping aside. Does it happen sooner? Does he actually resign the presidency and allow Kamala Harris to ascend to the presidency, so we get used to seeing her behind the the resolve desk and the
well, that would be best. I mean, look, it's not pleasant, but basically it would be like the abdication of Pope Benedict. It's like, look, I'm an old man. I thought I could run this race to January 2025. I'm so sorry. I can't do it. I've got this extremely likable sidekick that you guys all love.
Yes, the hijinks.
You might know her from such places as death row in California, where sent many innocent men of color. So that would be the right move. Because they're Democrats, I don't think they're capable of making the right move congenitally. So I think that means they're going to dither. And remember, Joe Biden is a ditherer. He always has been as a decision maker. He was late to getting into the 2020 campaign. He was late to getting into his previous primary runs. He's an ass dragger. And, old people don't become less ass draggy. They become more ass draggy. So they're going to have to get him to agree to this. I think he steps down maybe next summer and then opens the field. And then I think Gavin Newsom is the shadow nominee.
No, Newsom is a terrible nominee.
The shadow candidate. He thinks he's in case of emergency.
I know he thinks he is, but he's not, because if President Biden resigns and for health reasons, then he's going to be running against an incumbent president.
But good luck. Harris would have to be told not to run again and to finish out the term, complete the term as a caretaker president.
No, that's not. You're talking now. You're talking nonsense. Now you're not consider putting the ego in politics, and that's not. She would never ever do that. She wanted to run for. She ran for president.
Oh right, there was that. Yeah, and that's true.
A really shitty campaign.
And she's going to build on that 0.4% that she got in the Democratic primary last time.
Well, as a sitting president, I think she would, and as a sitting female president of color,
0.4.
I think she performs very well. People laugh at me again, and I know I'm right on this, Ted, because the first 2 years of this administration, she was a train wreck. She was a catastrophe. But the last year, I'm not sure if she just decided to listen because she was going to be the Dan Quayle of her party or what. But her appearances, she's not going for charm because she's not charming.
Well, she can't go for that. Yeah.
No, but what she's doing is she's taking the Nixon route. Now, stay with me on this. She's coming off as very engaged, very competent, extreme competent in the extreme, and she's pulling it off. It's working.
I agree that the thing is, you are a sunny optimist like Ronald Reagan, your idol. I agree that she's doing a lot better than before, but I don't see how she gets to 270 electoral votes against Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, you only have one chance to make a first impression, and she made a shitty first impression when she became vice president. Can you,
if she were dealing with some kind of crazy crisis, like a 9/11 type thing.
But if there's a crisis with the president and his health is now, he thinks that he's a squirrel, and she has to, they have to use the 25th Amendment, something like that. Yeah.
If she stepped in.
Yes.
I'm in charge here. Remember Al Haig?
Oh, yes. If you have the president, then you have what's his name, and then you have me, which was not true, by the way. He kind of skipped over the whole leadership and the whole 22nd Amendment thing. But, what's breaking one amendment between free? Yeah, who cares? So I think that this could happen. I think a 25th Amendment crisis could happen, or Biden could voluntarily say, you know what, there's something going on. I need to take some time away from the rigors of the presidency, and he can do that. He can sign a letter saying
that. I mean, honestly, at this point now we have to get into political psychology, and I have to say I've never observed or known of Joe Biden to make any decision that wasn't completely selfish and not for the greater good of his party or for the country.
This really may be beyond his control. He really may just start, drooling and not being able to swallow his soup at some point, and they're going to have to. And he can do it voluntarily, or they can do. I forget the machinations they have to jump through. It's pretty weird. Like the cabinet has to vote on it, and then I think the minority leader of the Senate has to turn 3 times and spit, and then it gets weird. I mean, weirder than usual.
But Amendment, isn't it just a simple cabinet vote?
Is it a cabinet vote? Yes, to say that yes, we feel that the president is
simple majority of the cabinet votes.
Is it a majority, or does it have to be? Does it have to be?
Well, let's look that up.
Let's do that, because nothing's more interesting in podcasting than hearing someone go on the internet and look stuff up.
Yes,
let's Google soup.
Indeed.
The 25th Amendment is like, an incapacitated president, and I think we could be headed in that direction. He is really one fall away from.
It's a simple majority.
Is that right?
Of the executive department sends a letter to the president pro temp of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. They say, the president's not able to perform discharge his duties. Then Congress votes on what to do.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And so the Congress,
the vice president becomes acting president.
Yeah, well, okay. The Republicans' House is not going to.
Sorry. It has to be a vote by. It's not a simple majority. It's a 2/3 majority.
In the House or the Senate, or both? Holy shit!
Impossible.
See, yeah. And if I was a Republican, I would not vote to make Kamala Harris president. I mean, that means you've got a young, spry person in there who could run for an election in her own right.
No, exactly. You'd keep Biden right where he is.
Yeah, no, he seems just Jim Dandy to us.
And by the way, right there is the argument for why Biden should step aside. The fact that the Republicans would vote to keep him over Harris, right there is why the Democrats should make him step aside.
I see your point.
And with that, where can people find all things Scott Stantis?
You can go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis, one word, or you can go to gocomics.com/Prickly City and see my comic strip. You can also go to chicagotribune.com/opinion and see a gallery of the work I do for them. And you can listen to our melodious voices on Center Clip. Ted and I and other friends are involved in this. They're mini podcasts, 30 seconds to no longer than 5 minutes. I've really enjoyed it, Ted. When there's a breaking news story, it's my go-to outlet.
It's so fun. I'm always looking forward to hearing what other people on there have to say. So
how about you, Theodore? Where do we see all things
so
Rall?
you can find me sometimes, increasingly less often, at Counterpoint. You can find me at gocomics.com/Ted Rall. You can find me at rawl.com. And I have at whowhatwhy.org. And you can also check out my radio show on Radio Sputnik, which is on Rumble and other places, but Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, co-hosting with Angie Wong of Miami, Florida. She's a right winger.
And manga. Why did I say manga? Because I'm you know why? Because I'm teaching a course on cartooning, and that segment's coming up. So
excellent.
She is a manga person. Maga? Yeah, is it maga or manga?
Not a manga person.
No, which would be cooler, frankly.
Maga manga. Is there maga manga? There manga?
There should be if there isn't. It's just a whole new art form. Good for us.
Yeah, well, it's just what the world needs. Well, anyway, and with that, thanks for listening to the DMZ America podcast. I'm Ted Rall. That's Scott Stantis, and we will see you either next week or sooner if there's an important story that we deem worthy of podding over. Thanks for listening.